G'day everyone and welcome back to Hey It's Surfing. This is take 2 of today's Victorian surf report after a few technical dramas brought the first recording to an early and fairly undignified end. Technical dramas! The camera heard your introduction and switched itself off. Thank you, Dicky. Thank you. Thanks, mate. Anyway, we're back. The cameras are hopefully behaving. And this time we're looking specifically at the surf for Thursday afternoon. The cold front has passed through Victoria, leaving behind a powerful west-to-southwesterly airflow, plenty of southern ocean swell, and a coastline that is becoming increasingly rough as the afternoon goes on. There is no shortage of surf today. The challenge is finding somewhere that isn't being belted by the wind. So the big waves, freezing wind and sideways rain. Lovely day for sitting indoors and criticising people, really. It appears to be your full-time occupation, Dicky. Let's take a look around the Victorian coast. First, let's separate what is actually being observed from what is forecast for the rest of the day. At 11 o'clock this morning, the Bureau was recording a southwesterly wind of around 21 knots at Cape Otway, gusting to 30 knots. South Channel Island was also recording around 21 knots from the west, while Wilson's Promontory was sitting near 26 knots with gusts reaching 37 knots. Further offshore at Hogan Island, winds were already blowing at 32 knots and gusting to 37 knots. So this isn't simply a forecast wind that may arrive later. The stronger westerly airflow is already established across the Victorian coast. 37 knot gusts, that'll blow the wax off your board and possibly the repayments. The Bureau, bloody oath, Dicky. The Bureau has a gale warning current for the central coast. For this afternoon and evening, westerly winds are forecast at 20 to 30 knots, reaching 35 knots through the far east of the district before turning more southwesterly overnight. Seas are running between 2 to 3 metres, with the offshore swell at around 2.5 to 3 metres, increasing to between 3 and 5 metres west of Cape Otway. Showers remain likely with the possibility of small hail moving through during the afternoon. Those are offshore marine figures. The breaking wave estimates in each region will vary considerably depending on shelter, swell direction, reef shape, and local sandbanks. Translation: it's big, it's windy, and Keith's hair hasn't got a chance. Bloody oath, Dicky. Are you serious? My hair would be under a bloody beanie today. A good solid beanie. Don't you worry about it. Oh, yeah, you want to make it a bloody thick beanie too, Kate? Yeah, I'll make sure she's a thick one, Dicky. Starting on the surf coast, and this remains the clear statewide pick for the afternoon. An observed regional report at 9 o'clock this morning had the surf coast around 8 feet with lumpy southwest swell, moderate northwesterly wind, and a quality rating of 6 out of 10. Since then, the wind has moved further west and southwest, so surface quality will be more exposed and uneven than it was earlier. For this afternoon, Bells Beach and Winky Pot should generally remain in the 6 to 8 foot range, with larger sets possible as the deeper southwest energy fills in. Torquay Point and the more protected sections should be smaller, somewhere around 3 to 5 feet, depending on exactly how much swell wraps inside. The open reefs west of Bells will be substantially larger again, with very serious surf and strong currents. These breaking wave heights are estimates based on the observed regional report. The Bureau's offshore swell forecast and model guidance carrying a long period southwest swell of roughly 14 seconds. 6 to 8 foot of Bells. Perfect. You go first, Keith. I'll stay here and guard your car keys. Just as long as you don't drive, Dicky, you won't reach the pedals, mate. The best remaining window is early this afternoon. The wind is already strong, but is forecast to turn more southwesterly during the evening, which will replace additional texture across even the protected reefs. The tide around Lorne reached a low at approximately 11:35 this morning and is now rising toward a high around 5:49 this afternoon. At Point Lonsdale, the tide bottomed out at around 11:46 and rises around shortly after 6 tonight. That rising tide may add some water and consistency to the reefs, but it will not remove the wind or the considerable sweep. The main hazards are slippery rock, entries, shifting takeoff zones, large outside sets and difficult exits during stronger squalls. The protected surf coast reefs get a 6.5 out of 10 this afternoon. There is quality available, but this is not a relaxed or beginner-friendly session. 6.5? That's also how many working batteries Keith brought on the first shoot. Dicky, what's batteries got to do with anything at the moment with the weather, mate? Don't you worry when they run flat. You'll bloody be wishing you brought more. Anyway, moving across to the Mornington Peninsula, and the open beaches have plenty of raw surf but very little shelter. The observed regional report this morning had the peninsula around 6 feet plus with a lumpy west-southwest swell. Through the afternoon, exposed beaches such as Gunnamatta, St Andrews, Rye and Portsea should generally remain around 6 to 8 feet, with occasional larger sets at the deepest and most exposed banks. The problem is the westerly wind. At 20 to 30 knots, it is blowing across or into much of the open coast, creating heavy surface chop, powerful lateral sweep, and constantly moving takeoff zones. The incoming afternoon tide may help some banks hold their shape, but it will also add more water movement through the gutters. Point Lonsdale's tide is rising from the 11:46 low toward a high just after 6 this evening. 6 to 8 foot, sideways wind and hail. Just needs a parking fine and you've got the complete peninsula experience. What, from the water police, Dicky? Nah, not from the water police. In the car park, because you won't even paddle out. Neither will you. Yeah, I see you over there thinking, yeah, well, today's not really the day. You'd have to be balls to the wall, Dicky, to paddle out, I reckon. Good hooded 4-3, some gloves and booties. So moving on to Flinders and the Western Port side. Here, we'll offer much smaller surf. However, Western Port is still forecast to carry westerly winds at 15 to 25 knots, with seas building as high as 1.5 to 2.5 metres west of Sandy Point. So even the sheltered side is not exactly calm this afternoon. The best peninsula option is a protected corner with reduced exposure. The open beaches are heavily swept, rough and suitably only for experienced surfers who know the local banks. Mornington rates 3.5 out of 10 this afternoon. Plenty of power, very little refinement. 3.5? What, 3.5? That's generous. It looks like the ocean's having a tantrum because someone took away its iPad. Yeah, or switched off the Wi-Fi, Dicky. Phillip Island is carrying some of the largest surf in the state. An observed report at Woolamai this morning had surf at around 12 feet plus with strong wind, choppy conditions and a rating of 3 out of 10. That gives us a useful reminder that the offshore swell height and breaking wave height are not the same thing. Local exposure and bank shape can produce waves considerably larger than the broad marine forecast suggests. Model guidance has a directed swell at Woolamai sitting around 2.5 metres at 14 seconds this afternoon, rising toward 3 metres at 15 seconds this evening. In practical terms, Woolamai is huge, raw and heavily swept, with larger waves continuing to arrive towards dusk. 12 feet plus at Woolies? That's not surfing, that's an unpaid internship with Poseidon. Oh, Dicky, why are we getting all mythological with this Poseidon stuff, mate? Like, have you got too much salt water on the brain? Okay, let's just leave it at that. No, we don't need to go down too far with that one. Forest caves and the open Bass Coast will also be powerful and disorganised. Smith's Beach, Surfy's Point and YCW will be smaller, but the westerly wind will still affect the surface and move plenty of water through the channels. At Stony Point, low tide arrives at approximately 12:49 this afternoon. The tide then rises strongly toward a high of around 2.77 metres shortly after 7 tonight. That sizable tidal rise will increase flow through Western Port's entrances, channels and reef systems. Expect strong lateral movement, rapidly changing currents and difficult exits. Philippine and the Bass Coast rate 3 out of 10 overall this afternoon. There is certainly waves, but most exposed locations are more suitable for watching than paddling.